Welcome to The People I Know, a philosophical podcast with and about the diverse people I've met over the years as an African American female dancer, philosopher, comms specialist, and many other things. Today's guest is multi-instrument, multi-aircraft rated pilot, mother, and overall badass, Odile Murphy. Enjoy. Like to get started with first a land acknowledgement. Since we are here on lands that are not our own, we pay respect to the elders past and present of the Chemehuevi, Southern Paiute, Hualapai, and Mojave lands on which we live and do this work. For more information, if you're watching the YouTube video, you can find those websites for those tribes below us. Welcome, Odio.
Oh boy, I am just a little person who comes originally from Western Europe, born in England. My mom's French, my dad's Irish. I'm a mishmash of things. I have a bachelor's in physics, a master's in social anthropology, and then I went on to become a dual-rated pilot because I cannot make my mind up. And here we are. Yeah. Vegan, awesome. Mom, feminist, egalitarian. I don't know.
Yeah. You're vegan?
I am. I have been for some time. Yeah.
Oh,
I'm I think almost 30 years meat free and vegetarian for 22 years, vegan for 6, I think. So yeah.
Awesome sauce. All the more reason to love Syl, which
I
have you two meet up.
Felt a bond with her.
yeah, absolutely. And so we met when I was working at that company behind you. You were flying. I was dealing with people.
Like a wizard.
And in the middle, helicopters and air and all kinds of stuff. And it's just been a pleasure to circle around you, to sing songs with you and say words loudly, emphatically.
Some expletive ones, yes.
Just a few. So welcome to this chapter of The White Women I Know. So because you're one of the good white women I know, I wanted to speak with you, and something that we haven't ever really talked about, and I'm very curious about, especially with your background, with your parents, how you see this. First question is, how does whiteness affect you? How is it in your life? How has it come up? How has it not come up? When is it important? When is it not important? Go.
Man, it's funny because you really like to think it would never be important. It wouldn't matter what anyone is at any point, but boy, it does matter. It's sad. I don't understand it, but especially more and more, people are becoming more aware of where they fit, especially here in the States. I think there's a lot of weight to every identity. And but honestly, part of the privilege of whiteness is not having to think about it too often. It's especially when you are in an environment where you are surrounded by a lot of other white people. You're afforded the privilege to not have to think about it much until you become a minority yourself, which is not terribly often around here. And it's happened a few times in my life where I've been like either the one and only, or like either the only woman or the only white person or the only, but until then, you don't really notice it much, which is great. Also, being a very small white woman is great.
Odile is little.
And what's great is I apparently am very non-threatening. People don't seem to give a crap about what I get up to, or people assume I'm never up to no good, I can slink in and out of any situation and nobody cares.
And that is actually something that's really particular to you. So, I mean, all of the women in my life are outspoken in some way or another. We just find each other and love each other. But you are a really outspoken kind of gal. So do you think that if you were of any other, race, ethnicity, background, or gender, that the way you express yourself, the freedom that you have would be different?
I think it probably should be, but I have a certain amount of fuck it installed in me. And I don't know if that's been afforded to me by how I appear. Maybe it's a consequence of how people don't seem to notice me much. But I think I just noticed that, well, since they're not going to pay attention when I say normal things, I may as well just let it all out. All right, you want to hear it? Hey, I'm down here and I have some stuff to say.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that I would get more backlash if people saw me differently. You know, it's funny. Sometimes it's annoying and sometimes I use it to my advantage. But, you know, sometimes you have a point to get across and nobody's listening, you know, and you're like, excuse me, please. But a guy standing beside you hears it. He's tall and he's strong. And people go, oh, he said it. And wow, suddenly it's very important or it's very funny, or that happens a lot too. That's infuriating. But by the flip side, you can use the good stuff to your advantage and be like, all right, well, I'm over here and nobody cares, so I'm just going to do whatever the heck I want.
So, and that makes me want to go two different directions and doing whatever the heck you want, but let me back it up a little bit. So you said that you feel like there's a different, you noticed a definite difference between being here in the United States and elsewhere. Can you think of like an example that has really demonstrated that one way or another?
It just feels a lot more divided here. It's like, you know, the boundaries are blurry, but it's kind of like, oh, Black people live there, Asian people live there, and, you know, these Mexican people hang out together, and then, you know, white people kind of do whatever. But it feels a lot less like where I was before. You just had groups of people, and some of them had Pakistani origins, some of them were, it just didn't seem to matter as much. But it could also just be how I popped into this country. I came right into aviation, and you saw there's not a whole lot of diversity in aviation. Now where I work now is night and day. I have, in my entire 15 plus year aviation career, I've never met as many Black pilots as we have in our one company. It's a fairly small company, but we have a good amount, proportional for the industry. I'd say more than proportional for the industry. And we have a very diverse flight attendant community and a group of, I mean, everyone who works at the company is, I mean, we've got LGBT representation that's amazing. We have a lot of, Black, white, brown, all the colors.
Everybody's
it's
there.
fantastic. Yeah. And like people who are so accomplished that you're like, wow, I'm surrounded by amazing people. Like at that company, I am just some bouncy little person who's just happy to be there.
Did you do aviation? Because there's so much, like I just kind of jumped into your story. I'm like, oh right, this is Odile. Woo! And on the ride. So before, there's not much I knew about you before. You're a secret spy. Did you do aviation? Were you in aviation in Europe? Oh, okay.
Not at all. So I moved out to the States to learn to fly, because over there it's unaffordable. And like, if you ask anyone around Europe, like, you know, if this can be a pilot, no,
which probably answers my other question, is how diverse is it in Europe?
It is not. And it is like, and it's, you know, there are exceptions, of course, but in the public perception, the only person who's going to be a pilot is a tall, broad-shouldered blonde man who has probably been in the military, and anything other than that is completely shocking. And that's why I had a lot of backlash from passengers at this place, because you get a lot of people who come over from everywhere, but it, you know, men, women, any country, you get people who are like, I am not flying with you. This is not acceptable. I'm not putting my family through this. I'm like, I haven't even told you my name yet. You know how I fly. But it would happen.
It's funny because it's horrible.
If we don't laugh, we cry.
Yeah. I've definitely had heard stories about these types of passengers. It's really unfortunate.
Yeah, it is. And it's funny because when you don't think about it yourself and you just kind of go, oh, of course I can do this. I have 2 hands, I have 2 feet, and I have a brain in my head. So that's probably what it takes to do that. And you just go off and you do the training and you get the same or more qualifications as other people. And then you're just met with this barrier every time you meet new people. And they just take one look at you and they go, nope, you don't fly well. But I do. And then you get all squeaky and mad and they take you less seriously, and it's a cycle.
So many things are coming up in me.
Like, I get the same way. I get the fury, and
yeah. And what's great about this is that the way that you're describing this can be applied to other identities. I mean, people going up and seeing an Asian pilot, or we never had any brown pilots. Oh no, there were a couple of guys, Latino guys on the crew, but that was it. Other than my brother, I've never met a black pilot. So so I imagine the same thing would be applied.
Very much so.
Can be said.
Yes, and especially we had a small female Asian pilot at one point, a total badass, loved her to death. And she, because of the stereotype that Asian women can't drive, she'd have to preempt that all the time. Like, don't worry, like, I just do this. I don't have to park the cars, and she'd have to preemptively fill the void with humor every time, because especially Americans have that stereotype. Asian women can't drive, and they just treat her like nothing. And you're really gonna fly us?
Wow. Somebody please be taking notes out there. Please tell a friend, tell an enemy, tell somebody, hey, you're traveling to Vegas. These are things that you should not say, or Alaska, wherever you're going. But anyhow, focusing on the podcast. So one more question about identities, but whiteness specifically. You have a child who is also amazing. And so you are raising him in this country. So how do you feel? What are your thoughts on? What are you doing? What are your ideas surrounding you're raising a white boy?
Who's going to become another white man? Yes. Yeah. It's interesting because you want to do so much to preempt the pitfalls and to make him, a really good citizen. And I only have the one, so I can really focus all my energy on not messing him up. But it's funny, the thing I found the most, and I get really into it sometimes, and any kind of learning moment, I want to just like pounce on it and like address stuff. Yeah. But what's funny is kids are inherently not racist. They don't care. And so it's funny because you're like really into it, like you've got to make sure, and like, yeah of course. It doesn't compute to them why that would be a problem. At least not my kid. He's just like, I don't get why that would even be an issue. I've got, friends of like whatever color. I don't know why it matters. Yeah. Like, you don't understand, like not everyone thinks that way. And then sometimes you also get that problem where kids of a certain age, you have a big conversation about something important, and you're like, are you getting me? And they kind of go, Mom, why are oranges orange? Are you hearing me? Like it's and they go, okay, but when's dinner? And you're like, I know it's going. So it's about, I know for me, it's about a lot of repetition and not trying to make it boring. You want to keep it active and dynamic and like basically face situations as they come. But it's funny because my kid just did a presentation. They had to do a thing on famous Americans. Okay. And they're given a list of suggestions, and I'm kind of trying to explain broadly who these acceptable famous Americans are. And and I'm like, so this guy, these guys, built the first plane that successfully flew, and this was a president, not sure what that guy did. It's all American, so I'm not gifted with a lot of that history. Gotcha. So I had to Google a lot. And Barack Obama, he was like a really nice president, like he was super cool guy, and move on to the next thing. And he just like latched onto that, and he's like, I want to talk about the super cool president. I'm like, oh my god, we're gonna unearth this can of worms, and it's gonna be a whole thing. Why did I have to get it political? I don't know.
Evidence
So
you're doing a good job.
I'm
Things don't get easier.
and it sucks because I know there's always more to be done. And you know, right now the big thing is being like, not racist. You want to be anti-racist and really like get out there. And it's funny because, like I said, he to him, none of it makes sense. Like, why would it be an issue? And like, sometimes you feel like you're harping on it so much that you're making an issue.
Yeah.
Oh,
right. I've heard this from parents. Right.
So, you know, you just tackle the things, you know, as best you can. But you make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. And
right.
I just think you try not to ignore it. You try to make points if anything does come up, but I don't have the answers. And
you're going to mess up your kids some way or another.
For sure. I look forward to the book someday. I feature prominently, I'm sure.
No, that's good. That, you know, it's on your radar. You're putting it on his radar, trying to do that when relevant, necessary, possible. And I think that's so much more than, you know, some people are doing or are able to do. So, okay.
I'll try to keep up with the times. I know sometimes also there's like a shift in like what the better avenue is. I try to keep an open mind and like keep, but you know, my ear to the ground and see what works better.
Gotcha. Shifting gears now to my personal favorite stuff, critical thinking and or philosophy. You can take one or the other or both. And the questions, why or when are these things important to your life personally or professionally?
Oh boy. You know, I think more and more, because we just have so much stuff thrown at us all the time now, you know, the internet and social media and there's information coming from everywhere. And so to filter through the muck, you've got to have critical thinking. But I think it seems obvious that you would, but then you come upon people in your day-to-day life and you realize, oh no, somebody fed them something and they're just going with it. And they haven't put any thought into like why, or that may or may not be true, or who it came from, or what the purpose might be. And so, you know, you try to do a little bit of that yourself, but sometimes you're just up against a wall. And of course, you know, people don't want to be wrong. They don't want to think that they've been manipulated so yeah, you try to just receive stuff, but just be skeptical a lot, especially, you know, the more you're faced with, but be diplomatic too, because sometimes you're locked in a small cockpit with a person whose opinions are strange and you're trying to keep the peace while
so that sounds like a great example for, you know, a thought experiment, folks. Okay, so in many ways you are like the most extreme version of this example, where you are literally trapped in a space with a person, I guess, with whom you disagree on something. The reason that disagreement came up, that might feed into this, but you're here. And in general, people can just leave, like just walk away, literally get in their car, drive away, close a door, shut an app. I don't know, even an elevator, you wait till you get to your floor and you walk out. But in an aircraft that has very little room, you are there with people who are saying things that are not of you. Or vice versa. How can critical thinking, how does critical thinking apply there? How do you not, you know, lose your shit and crash an aircraft? Because that is
because you have to.
All right.
And I think if they're not going to be the bigger person about it and put their stuff aside to just go with it, then you have to, because you can't just be bickering all the way down to a landing. That's ridiculous. And thank goodness there are actually rules in place so that you're not talking about nonsense like that at an important time. Thank goodness. And most people, especially younger, more attuned people, they're very keen to not engage in sensitive stuff like religion or politics or stuff, but that doesn't always work. And then when it does start, then people do get very touchy, and it can be very you can tell there's like a fuse has been lit, and you can either snuff it out or you can just fully engage. But in a place like that, that's where I will do the little bit of devil's advocate. Well, what if? And like, how about if you put yourself in this person's shoes? And then if they're just kind of going off in their own little direction and it's not working, I'm like, I just let it go. I just, yep, because that's a place that, yeah, you can't walk away from and you can't escalate. That's not helpful to anyone.
Yeah, no, this is so important to really articulate. I'm writing this down. Why I'm having these conversations, because it's yes, clearly you receive training on this because that's part of being a player. But no, when we're in serious situations, slightly less serious situations, and here in this country, unfortunately, in open carry states, we don't know how quickly situations can escalate, or like if we're going to trigger a heart attack in somebody. Like there's just so many other options for how serious the situation could be. We can just de-escalate it. We can we read those cues that it's going in a bad direction. We maybe recognize there are rules for certain situations. If I'm in a grocery store, people are just there to buy groceries. If you're having an argument in a grocery store, maybe something's gone wrong. I'm just throwing it out there. These are like the unwritten, just kind of common sense. Society has agreed upon these rules just to function as society. And yeah, sensitive environments. If you're in a hospital, maybe like don't do certain things as well. But this is really applicable to other situations. So thank you, because
I'm happy to lend an interesting.
Yeah. I mean, maybe if I hadn't witnessed it myself, I'd still be a little skeptical about. No, people don't try and start arguments at 5,000 feet.
Oh, they sure do, and fires and all kinds of fun things. Because why not?
It's funny because it's true. Yeah. With your son, do you find, because he is so smart, do you find that what do you think of his critical thinking skills?
It's funny because I flip-flop between thinking they don't exist at all, that he takes everything at face value, and then sometimes he'll come up with a doozy and I'm like, oh, he's paying attention. Oh, okay. Or he knows that, like certain people don't think the same way as other people. So he'll take what I say at face value, but whatever dad says, he knows that's probably full of nonsense because it's usually a joke and it's usually something absurd.
Okay.
So he's got some sense, but he's 6, so
yeah.
A lot of you got to remember that a lot of stuff that they hear, like even sarcasm, makes no sense to them because everything is just face value.
Yeah.
So be careful what you say and make sure that they get the nuances a little bit.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's all there yet. I think that takes time.
Right. Yeah. No, he's only 6. And the philosopher in me, because I've always, partially raised in a family where we were supposed to question things, or question certain types of things and not question others, because that's the military mindset. The reflecting back, I'm like, well, I sure wish I had more time to like not get jokes, or or maybe the opposite, maybe more time to be like the other kids that I knew who had more fun because they weren't questioning things. And so with my friends who are parents, I wonder, it's like, well, of course you want them to be aware, but like, how aware do you want them to be?
Yes. And you don't want to take all the fun out of life like right now. You want to do it in phases.
Yeah.
That you'd like them to reach their first real existential dilemma when they're in their 20s, and hopefully not before. It's a good time to be unsure of everything.
I like that. Solid advice. What are your thoughts on existential dilemmas?
I mean, are we human if we're not in a constant existential dilemma? Is that a thing?
Let me bring this down a little. How do you deal with them? Because a lot of people have been questioning their purpose this last year, especially, and our options for living have changed. So, how do you address these kinds of questions?
For me, I get overwhelmed easily if I let it become a big thing. So I like to break it down into little chunks. Like, what things can I address? Am I comfortable changing? Am I comfortable even addressing? And just little things, and giving yourself an out, kind of going, how about if I explore this, but I'm not committed to it, so I can always step back if I need to. Oh, that was too much at once. Like, I'm gonna back down, a little bit, maybe not dive in fully head first. That stuff makes me uncomfortable. I'm a very like left brain, like to know all the options, like to plan. So just keeping a little, like tiny baby steps forward all the time, trying to improve, trying to get on the path that you want to be on, and constantly improve on the plan, but in ways that you can actually tackle. I did all my big leaps of faith like a long time ago, and I'm comfortable with them now, but I now look back and I'm like, I was crazy. I was a crazy person for moving continents, not knowing a soul, trying a thing I had no reason to believe I could do, like one bag to a place that like everyone's like, Fresno, okay, why? And now I think if my kid decided to do the same thing, I'd be like, no, like what? No, that's too much.
Does not sound smart. Yeah.
No, but I'm at an age now where I'm just like, okay, baby steps, little bits, bite-sized chunks. Like, let's maybe try mindfulness just for a day and see how we like it. And then if you like it, it's a little bit more, but not, I don't want to share. If I do something and it has repercussions on like the family now, so it's like, I gotta go easy with
it. That's why there are Hail Marys happening now. There's the family. There's the other effects, the collateral damage, if you will.
Yes. Yeah. And that's kind of the thing that's weird with me, is that I used to just not care and just like, everything's for yourself, when you're young and free and single, and you're like, all right, I'm going to change everything. Yeah. But I have to take into account these other people now. And that's strange for me. And it's a lot of compromise and thinking of like how they'll handle it too, and how I can ease them in or just not bother or leave them out of it, or it's a lot more variables. So that's I don't know. Bite-sized chunks.
I like that. I think I'm like transitioning, doing like a final transition out of the well, I'll just see what happens personally, and I'm getting a better understanding of what that means. Those little chunks, just a bite, just a little bit. Oh, now we don't even have to move forward. We can just think about what we did.
Yeah. Yes, we can. Evaluate, see how that worked out. How we feel about it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Everything's not for everyone. I'm a real, like, I'll try anything once kind of person, except, the extreme things. You're like, I'm not going to sit in a pit of scorpions. That's not for me. But, other stuff that may seem crazy, I'll try it once and then I'll tell you for sure with an informed manner, that's not for me. I don't like that. But sometimes you discover stuff that you're like, oh no, that's a novel way of doing things, or that's a cool way to live, or I could live in a cabin on a beach. Yeah, that could work for me.
Or a cabin in the desert.
Yes. That could work for me. With the wildlife. I love that. You're very at one.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, speaking of, I found I can't call it a hoof because it was more than a hoof. It was like this down. It was a part of a leg. Sammy found it on her walk a few weeks ago.
Oh wow, that's a happy puppy right there.
He was so happy. I appreciate this advice from you. I know we've talked a little bit about existential dilemmas before, but it's so nice to hear, especially from you non-philosophy people, just really practical, simple solutions to this thing that like gets us in these books and just I'm in the fetal position and life doesn't exist. Like, no, just brush your teeth.
Move forward in your day, and if you ponder the meaning of it all, okay, great, but don't let it bog you down, and don't let that guy's theory versus that guy's theory put you in a tailspin, because guess what? They probably didn't know either. They're just musing like you are. So
I like that a lot. That's all of my official questions. Is there anything else that you would like to share since you have this space?
No, I wish we got to do this more often. I feel like when I cross paths with you at work, it was always little like, oh,
so short.
Lord. Yeah, I know. Like, okay, hi, bye. Oh man, yeah. I'll look out there. So yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you. I'll take any chance I can to catch up with you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.